Why on earth would President Bush go to the trouble of preemptively pardoning the criminals in his own administration for illegal torture and detention or illegal wiretapping against Americans if Senator Obama's legal advisor says Obama's Attorney General would not prosecute those criminals anyway? Our third story in the countdown, heads they win, tails we lose, amid the fading hopes of holding the administration to account. Justice Department figures have President Bush at only 157 pardons and 6 commutations thus far. By comparison, over 2 terms, Reagan granted clemency 409 times, Clinton 459. But the Boston Globe reports that Bush is being inundated with requests for pardons, at this point mostly from names, running the gamut from John Walker Lind to disgraced Olympian Marion Jones. But one former Reagan DOJ official is pushing for preemptive action and tells the New York Times that would be to prevent long-term investigations and protect people who proceed in, quote, good faith. Otherwise, she says, no one will ever take chances. Yeah, see, that's kind of the idea here. The White House response, we are going to decline to comment on that question since it is regarding internal matters. Just as disturbing, perhaps, Obama legal advisor Cass Sunstein, saying only the most egregious Bush administration crimes should or would be prosecuted. As reported in The Nation magazine, quote, prosecuting government officials risks a cycle of criminalizing public service, Sunstein argued, and Democrats should avoid replicating retributive efforts like the impeachment of President Clinton or even the slight appearance of it. We turn now to George Washington University law professor and constitutional law expert Jonathan Turley. John, good evening.
Hi, Keith.
Bottom line here, between the Bush pardon possibility and what Cass Sunstein said, did we just see accountability go out the window for good?
Well, that would probably wrap it up. I mean, if he pardons people and the Obama administration refused to prosecute people, it wouldn't leave much else. You could order pizzas late at night to his house or sabotage his MySpace page, but that would be it. I mean, the important thing is that there are very few obligations that a president has to do under the Constitution, but one of them is not to violate the laws that he is supposed to enforce. And what really concerns me about Cass Sunstein's statement is that I don't know what a non-egregious crime by a president or by an administration might be. I think that all crimes committed by the government, particularly the president, are egregious. But what bothers me most is that this is consistent, as you know, with Speaker Pelosi's position that she will not allow an impeachment of the president no matter how strong the evidence. And it's part of this pattern that there are certain crimes that you simply won't prosecute. I don't understand why some Democrats can't just simply accept a very straightforward proposition that we'll prosecute any crimes committed by this administration, an Obama administration, a McCain administration, because they're crimes. They're all egregious. And so Cass Sunstein's statement has led many to lose a great deal of faith about the commitment to the future, because we've had 8 years of moral relativism and the avoidance of legal process. And to start a major campaign with a suggestion that we're going to distinguish between egregious and non-egregious crimes promises more of the same.
Let's split this thing back into its 2 component parts. The John Dean argument against proactive pardoning by Bush of Bushies was the same one that Richard Nixon apparently used in not pardoning his own people before he resigned. If we do that, we are collectively and individually admitting guilt. Does that no longer count in the Bush thinking about this?
I don't think it does, Keith. I think this would be the ultimate and final show of contempt by this president for the rule of law. If you remember, this was the same group that said, we are absolutely certain of the legality of these programs. And when they started to lose in court, Congress, including the Democrats, gave them new legislation to stop judicial reviews. So I don't think there's any question about illegality anymore. And I think this president would find it very consistent to say, I can tell people to commit crimes, and then I can pardon them for it. What is really troubling is that there appear to be Democrats on the other side who would welcome that.
And the other component part, why would Obama, through his legal advisor, punt not just on accountability, but even just on the threat of accountability through the election?
Right. No, I mean, I think it really does show that the Democrats are trying very hard to assure some voters and certainly a lot of politicians that they're not going to reopen these issues and that the Bush crimes will remain buried for all time. And I do think that all of these people have signed on to such a morally relativistic approach that it would start a new administration on the same level that George Bush left it. And that's a very sad thing. A new administration should commit at least to one thing, and that is to uphold the Constitution and the laws regardless of who may be the violator.
The constitutional law professor, Jonathan Turley. Let's get working on those late-night pizza orders. Thank you, John.
Thanks, Keith.